This is Hixby Fox.
And this is the Furry Eye Shine.
You are listening to
the
FurryCon podcast.
Good evening, subjects of Fursteros, and welcome to Season 2 of ConCast, the podcast about furry conventions. I'm your host, Theris, and with me tonight is the paw to the king for this upcoming FurryCon, Sauron the giant panda.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, and we have a great lineup for you this year for Season 2 of ConCast. Tonight, we're pretty much going to be talking about ConCast itself. The title for tonight's episode is a meta podcast because it's a podcast where we'll be talking about podcasting. We're also going to have a review of some of the other furry conventions that we went to this year, talk about like what we really liked about them and what we might take or what we might adopt that they did that we thought was really good, and maybe incorporate into either this year or next year of Game of Con chairs. So before anything else, we should probably do our bi-weekly scotch tasting. And tonight I have Jura Origin. It's a 10-year-old island single malt from the Isle of Jura, I think it is. And it's actually one of my favorite brands. It's a good combination of not being ridiculously expensive, because Scotch is pretty ridiculously expensive, but it's still really good. So it's a good quality to cost for single malt, in my opinion. So Sauron, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, by sheer coincidence, I'm also drinking a Scotch from Jura. It's Jura Superstition. It's kind of a sweet yet smoky Scotch. I believe it is 10 years as well.
I think it's actually 12.
Is it 12?
Yeah.
It's one of the few Scotches that doesn't actually say on the bottle, but it's it's a good flavor. I really like a peaty, smoky Scotch, and this has got just a touch of sweetness to make it a little more palatable. So
awesome. So we're both hooked on the Jura. It actually says on here somewhere how much they. I mean, I've got the box like right in front of me. I thought it actually had the ages, but I guess not. But at my work, it's one of my notorious drawer scotches. I actually have I think it's the Durich's Own. Actually, I have Durich's Own and Prophecy, and one of them is 18. I think Origin is 10, Superstition is 12, and then either Durich's Own or Prophecy is 16, and the other one is 18. But anyway, I'm just trying to open this.
well, I have no problem.
Yeah. I'm just brand new opening this for the first time, so. Let's get that pop.
Great. Sounds like you're pouring a tumbler of it.
All right. So check this out. Hopefully it's not too loud.
Mine's neat tonight, so I'm going to be on the quiet side.
Okay. Mine is on the rocks, so.
Well, it's how I like it, but I'm out of ice, so. And my stones are not cold, so.
Yeah, cold stones would be uncomfortable.
I meant the tasting stones a certain fox gave me for Christmas a few years ago.
So you're not even using them? Aw.
I am. They're just in the dishwasher.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know you could dishwash them. All right. On to segment 2, which is what have you done in the last 2 weeks? Except in this case, it's going to be, 6 months. So, Sauron, what have you been up to since the last ConCast? In preparation for this year.
Well, obviously, lots of different things. We've made some improvements to our dealers room policy. I've met with some of the dealers that had helpful suggestions from last year, and I know Mike's Comics or M&T Comics are coming back, and they've been sending out our flyers. We've met with some of the other dealers and gotten their input, so we've got a little bit better idea of how to make flow through the area better, and just some minor improvements.
Okay.
I've had lots of meetings with the hotel. We actually have secured a lot more con space for this year. We have a new con suite and movie room.
Cool.
We have a use of the pool deck on Sunday. It's sole use. They're opening the pool a day earlier than normal for us, and they're going to have it up to temperature, up to 85 degrees. They'll have a lifeguard, the whole 9 yards for one of the events we have. Obviously, weather permitting. If it's snowing, that won't happen, but it's doubtful.
Snowing in May? At the end of May?
At the end of May, it's pretty doubtful. It's been historically in the mid to upper 70s.
Okay, yeah, that's more what I would expect for Memorial Day. I mean, even in upstate New York, doesn't snow that late. Usually. Right.
Yeah, I've been going to lots of conventions and handing out flyers and talking with people, getting different ideas for things we'll implement, things we could try to improve upon, things like that.
Right. Great. Just there are plenty of ideas out there, and if they can make our convention better, that's great for us. Yeah, we could probably get more into the details of those individual things in later episodes, because we sort of have the episodes segmented by topics so that we can really go into depth. So we'll get more into those items specifically later on in the show. All right, so on to part 3. Let's talk about ConCast. So sort of, actually, maybe I should start this, because ConCast is it was sort of my idea initially, and I'm the editor and all that stuff. So just some of the stuff that I think about it. I think it's really interesting in that it was more popular than I initially thought. We average about 150 listeners per episode, which for a podcast that's just starting out, that's really good. So I think that's one thing that was really good about it. But this is really our first podcast, so we're really playing it by ear and listening to some of the other podcasters in the fandom who have some experience, some learning experiences that we might be able to learn from ourselves. And I think it's pretty interesting. It allows us to talk about some of the things that normally we wouldn't be able to communicate to our public, and do interviews and stuff like that. So I think it's really good in that department. I don't know. What do you think, Sarah?
Well, yeah, I agree. I've gotten very positive feedback. We're reaching audiences that we may not have reached before. We're getting more and more followers as the weeks go on. And like you said, we get about 150 listens a podcast. I hope that continues. It's just one more venue for us to get the word out there about different things that we're doing. Now there's a convention almost every weekend in the United States. And it's hard. There's a lot of competition out there for your convention dollar, and we want to try to give you the best bang for the buck on that. And this is just one other way we can do that.
Yeah, and it allows us to sort of field some ideas to come up with something, throw it out there, get some feedback right away from the public, rather than implementing some stuff and then hearing later on, oh, you could have done this and it would have been better, or maybe that wasn't such a really good idea. It's it's better to get this feedback early so that we can provide a better convention for when the date actually comes around. I do think it has worked out really well. The editing takes a lot longer than I had initially planned, which is sort of annoying, but I'm looking at ways to actually make that a little bit easier and condense the amount of time that's required for me to do that. So that would decrease the lag time between the recording and the time that we publish it to you guys. So that's one way in which I think it could be better. And of course, like more listeners would be awesome. But yeah, so Sauron, what do you think?
No, I agree. Things. One thing we're getting better is with our ums and ahs, and just our diction while we're speaking. Just trying to tighten that up so it reduces the editing mistakes. We also are trying to plan ahead a little bit more to tighten up what topics we want to talk about so we don't wind up with a 40 or 50-minute podcast when we were only expecting 20. And that happened a lot last year. We had a lot of information to impart to the public, and we got most of it out, but there were a few surprises here and there and a few technical difficulties. But the longer we do this and the more episodes we do, hopefully the tighter we'll get with it.
Yeah, I agree. That is one thing that we changed partway through the season of last year, was we changed the format. Initially, we had this idea of having 2 primary topics per podcast, and that never really worked out because it always ran over, usually for both segments. We couldn't get into as much depth as we would have liked for those topics. And so we sort of decided that not covering all the topics that we wanted to cover was less of an evil than rushing it and not being able to go into depth like we wanted to. So actually this year, we're only doing 13 topics. And last year we tried to do basically 26 topics. And the topics that we don't cover this year, we'll simply do next year. So for some topics, we might do every other year. Like one of the topics that we didn't do last year because we simply ran out of time was the video game room. But we went into a lot of depth in the tabletop game room. So this year, I'm kind of planning to flip that and not do the tabletop game room, but do the video game room. So things like that. We didn't talk at all about like the lighting system. We didn't talk about just like a whole series of things. And part of that was also because we ran out of time because of some technical difficulties that had arisen earlier in the podcast. Basically, I can talk about that a little bit more later. But
I was going to say, somebody didn't listen to me when I told them their microphone was off.
There was one episode that actually we split up into 2 episodes because it was really long and we thought it was really good. It's another one of those cases of us taking on too much. So we split it up into 2 episodes, but the microphone didn't sync up with Skype correctly for me. And so it defaulted to my laptop microphone. It just sounded like crap. And that's, I think it's like episode 4 and 5 or like 5 and 6 or something. If you go back and listen to our archives, you'll know which one it is because I had to revoice over everything and it sounds super fake. It just sounds terrible.
It's a live and learn.
Yeah, that's one of those learning experiences. That's a nice way to put mistake in a positive light. Learning experience, yes.
Or a teaching opportunity, depending on.
Right. So actually, yeah, that's one of the things that we've been struggling with. If there are any experienced podcasters out there, I'd like to, just drop us a line. I believe it's ConCast at FurryCon.com. If you can tell us a little bit about how you handle sound fidelity, that is something that I think we could really benefit from. Because even tonight, of course, it's been edited out of this podcast. We had some problems where we've got these really good microphones called Blue Yetis, and they pick up, I mean, they're really great, but they pick up everything. In fact, you can probably hear it right now. I'm in my new apartment, and you can probably hear a whole bunch of echo because I have these 15-foot ceilings, and they bounce all the sound around because I don't have enough furniture, or I don't have enough soft furniture anyway. I should put up some stuff in the corners, but these microphones pick up everything. And Sauron's computer was, his fan was making this weird noise, and we couldn't get rid of it. So we actually had to stop the podcast, stop the recording for about 10 to 20 minutes as we came up with a way to make it so that the microphone didn't pick up the awful sounding fan. So yeah, if any of you guys have any suggestions, learning experiences on how we can pick up less of the sounds around us and more of the sounds that we want you to hear, I'd love to hear it.
When the podcast is taking a while and we're getting a little bit frustrated, we need to just relax more.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And doing a sound check beforehand, that's another good one. Yeah, we also had some problems with dropped calls. Skype, so we're recording this over Skype mostly. For the most part, it's pretty good, but occasionally we get some weird artifacts and dropped calls, which is sort of annoying.
Bandwidth can be a problem.
Yeah.
At least on my end, because Rochester has okay internet, but nowhere near awesome speeds.
It's not Boston quality.
Well, I didn't quite want to say it that way, but yeah.
Yeah. The artifactation is sometimes can make some interesting sounds and stuff.
I think we need to organize ourselves better and have our guests lined up well in advance. Unfortunately, last year we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants because we were doing so many things at once.
Yeah.
That we weren't calling our guests our guests that were coming onto the show until the week before, and sometimes the day before, and it just wasn't always the best way to get somebody to come on the show.
Right.
We had to. One thing to alleviate that this year is that I'm delegating a heck of a lot more. Right now, I look back and see all the stuff I did by myself for End of the World, and I'm going, how the heck did I stay sane? And then I got looking at all the code you wrote and going, well, that's why you went insane.
Yeah. That was like the lost year.
Yeah, it was horrible.
The amount of work that goes into running a convention is sort of ridiculous, and we pretty much just tried to do it 2 people, and like I had no social life for a whole year. It was so bad.
It was your nerves were definitely a little frazzled.
Oh yeah, that was.
But
not
you know
doing
this.
That. Not doing
this
that
year,
again.
yeah, I mean, last year we had a staff of 30, and I think this year we're going to be up around 45, 50. So, between people doing artwork for us and people putting the con book together and just all these little things that I need off my plate so I can focus on the bigger things.
And even my plate has changed a little bit. A lot of stuff is being delegated to Ashadan, who's one of our lead DJs. In fact, he will be the lead DJ this year. So, and he's handling a lot of, what do you call that? DJ showcases, or no, not showcases.
Yeah, auditions, applications, whatever.
Yeah,
and so, he's going to be doing a lot of your legwork.
Yeah.
So you could do more of the creative side of things.
He's also he was also responsible for the sound setup last year. So if you guys like that, he's the guy that tuned that, and he'll be doing that again this year. And we'll probably also have him on this podcast at some point too, because that's one of those things that we wanted to do last year, and that is have some of the DJ talent. And it was one of the things that fell off because we simply overbooked the number of topics. One of the things that we did during the quote-unquote off time, if there is ever an off time for the Paw of the King, it would be between the wrap-up podcast that we had last year and this one that we're publishing right now. A lot of work went into the convention in the interim. Website work, most of all, planning and scheduling with the hotel, and setting up talent and staff, things like that. But another part of the legwork is just going out to other conventions, seeing what they do well, seeing what they do that maybe could be better so that we can avoid those problems. And sort of networking with other con chairs, finding some of their staffers that might want to help us too, and things like that. So Sauron and his crew, they went out to a whole bunch of cons. Probably, I think it was over 15, but he went to 7 himself, in addition to some of his helpers. We just want to run through the list of them and talk about what they really have done well, what we might be able to adopt from them. So, Sauron, the first one I have on the list, this is probably in reverse order, but the first one I have on the list is MWFF. It was your first time at this convention, correct?
Right. It was the first time I made it. The reason they shifted the time of the convention this year to well after Thanksgiving, and that allowed me to be able to go. Right. When I went out there, I had no idea what to expect. I kind of was expecting AC light, but not. I really didn't know. Of course, I knew a lot of the people running the convention. Pretty good friends with next year's con chair there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it.
Who is next year's con chair at MWFF?
That would be Woody.
Okay.
He's an old friend of the Oasis.
Cool.
But I got out there and I walked into the hotel and I was just in awe. It's reminded me a lot of the old FC days where, everybody is in one spot in a hotel. Yet there's tons of us there. The hotel setup is kind of similar to the old MFM hotel, where there's like 2 quads and then a executive quad off of that, and like all the rooms open out onto like an open area where everybody down below you is congregating. However, it's much larger. I mean, it's, I think, 10, 12 stories high, or 10 floors high of guest rooms. So, I kind of walked in and I was just amazed. Nimbus and I got there about 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I come out to unload the car and he's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing's wrong." He's like, you don't look like yourself." I was like, I'm just totally blown away. It was a really cool vibe. And, of course, I saw lots of people that we hadn't seen in quite a few years, because the Frozen Oasis hadn't gone to the West Coast since the 007 party. And I haven't been out there since 2009. Mm-hmm. And it was really good to see a lot of those old friends again and reconnect. The only real downside for me was the evacuation in the middle of the night, which, right, everybody felt was a downside. There was, I don't really want to get too much into that. The whole thing's been beaten to death in the media and so on and so forth. But it was an evac that we all learned from. There's a lot of discussion in the Furry Leadership Roundtable right now about that and how we can better institute emergency preparedness plans. Cassie and I and our EMS crew have really put together a good plan, and we have contingencies in place. So if there is an evac, that we'll have a place to go, so we won't be standing out in the elements, things like that. But their squad did the best they could with what they had, and yes, we're all learning from it. So
Right. It was a totally unexpected situation. Nothing like that has
Well,
ever happened before that we know of, at least, or
right.
that I know of.
And, of course, now we have to suspect it, but,
Right.
it's just one of those things that you prepare for and you hope you never have to use. And, like I said, a lot of our staff were there working. Frey, our lead medical person, was one of the medics there. So, he's getting that experience, which he can then turn in and help us learn. So, I mean, it was good. It was a good experience all the way around. I mean, thankfully, nobody was permanently hurt, at least to my knowledge. There were 19 people treated and released. And, of course, we send out our well wishes to all of them that they are better and they stay better.
All right. So, I mean, other than the layout, what was your favorite thing about MWFF? Was there any events that were really good that sort of were unique, or?
Not in particularly that I could tell. They had a huge dealers area. I mean, they have a lot of convention space, and to be honest with you, I didn't get to see it all.
Okay.
That hotel is huge, and we were only there for a day and a half with the evac. It kind of ruined our Sunday. But anyway, it was a lot of convention space, huge ballrooms. Their dealers area was like the bottom floors of the convention space, and there was just room after room after room of dealers or artist alley. They had an 18+ dealers room too,
Okay.
which was kind of neat. Of course, all of ours is an 18+ dealers room because our convention is.
Right.
But
it's a 21+ con.
21+ con, correct. So, but I got to talk to some folks, and it was just a nice experience. They had 2 bars centrally located in the hotel.
But there weren't any particular events that you really liked. So the dealer's room was really what drew you in the most.
Well, I think so. I think because it was huge. I mean,
Right.
it AC's dealer's room is huge, but this was a lot bigger than I was expecting in a hotel set con. They had a nice con suite as well. But as far as programming is programming. I mean, when you've got a con that large, one thing that really shocked me was they had about the same amount of programs as we did. If I read the schedule right, they had like 50 panels, and we had 37.
Yeah, we had a ridiculous amount of programming for a small con. I mean, It was. I mean, I don't think I've gone to so many panels at a convention that wasn't our own, and that's actually saying a lot because I was super busy doing con stuff.
Right. And it's that's not anything against MFF. It was just a note, something I noticed. And I know getting people to host panels is a royal pain. And when you have that huge an audience, there's always private events going on that are competing with everything. So people, whether people going out to dinner or people having a room party or people doing whatever. But I really thought it was a nice con. I can't wait to go back next year.
Cool. What about things that you think they could have done better, other than chlorine attacks?
Better communication on when stuff would be starting.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit better control of the fursuit parade. There was a lot of just people that weren't in the parade walking the parade route while it was going on. And I mean, there were an awful lot of rude furries too. But I don't think that's anything the con can do anything about.
Right.
It really shocked me during the parade that there were so many people just crossing the parade route and things like that. I don't know whether it was where I happened to be or whether it was just that the parade route was long. I don't know, but I mean, that's a relatively minor criticism.
Right.
I mean, it's
And the getting the word out for programming is something that I think everybody actually has to deal with. It's a major challenge. It's a huge challenge for us too. I mean, there were a lot of events that people later on I talked to, and they were like, "Oh, that's already happened." Getting the word out is sometimes really hard.
yeah,
So, all right, so let's move on to FanCon. FanCon, if I remember right, is one of your favorite conventions. And
yeah,
actually, you were a guest of honor. In fact, we both were, but I couldn't make it. So,
right. We had guest of honor at FangCon this year. They asked us to come down and throw a party and be part of their convention. It was a great time. I really like that convention. It's a 300 to 400 person convention right now. I hope it always keeps that flavor. I hope it grows, but that's the flavor I hope it always keeps because that's the type of con I like. And I really had forgotten how much I missed the Southern Con circuit. We used to do 8 or 9 of the major cons a year back in the mid 2000s, and it was FWA, MFF, Morphicon. The
I don't know if that's
MFM, I
really
should say.
southern. Yeah, but I
Well,
mean, we were talking about so I don't know if that's really southern, but we were talking about doing some other ones like OklaCon, Furry Fiesta, but we never
right,
really got out to them.
right. But the Southern Circuit is really nice.
It is.
It's I don't know whether it's more laid back or more to our style of fun or what. They're just nice. I enjoy the people and I enjoy the setup.
So southern hospitality, man.
Yeah, it very well could be that. But we got FangCon was great. We had about 117, 118 people through the door. We went through, I think it was 38 gallons of frozen drink mix.
Jeez. That's a bunch.
Yeah, that was it was a good time. It was a good old party, and it was a 60s themed party. So instead of taking the Frozen Oasis because you weren't there, we didn't want to do that.
Right.
So I took down one of the DJ decks and I hooked up a whole bunch of 60s psychedelic type music and
Do a little Woodstock.
Yeah, I did a little Woodstocky kind of thing.
Cool.
And hooked that up to the DJ, our DJ mixer and the Yamaha speakers and just kind of set that going. And I had a bunch of black lights all over the place, and I didn't know what to do for wall covering, so I ran out and bought this fleece fabric from Joanne Fabrics. I had it on sale, and I bought yards and yards of it, but with all these like really trippy black light reactive designs.
Cool.
And hung them all over the place, and we had, like I said, all of our black lights there, and Happy Pup and Good Shepherd were great helps in getting that all set up, and Zahn too did an awful lot of work. Of course, leave it to the Frozen Oasis type crew we had to do a little moving around of furniture. We had to remove the built-in microwave, so our frozen drink machine would sit on the counter of the suite, but we got that all put back together and stuff. It was just a good time, and we laid down. They had just rebuilt this particular suite, and they had brand new light gray carpet.
Ew.
So, and we had red and blue drinks. So I went out and got this really heavy workman's paper. It was almost like a cardboard, but it had a plastic layer in the middle of it. And we just laid it down on the carpet in the whole suite. So when stuff spilled on it, it would get absorbed, but it wouldn't go through the plastic.
That's very prudent.
Carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And, we just had a great time. We had that big old black light from the fur factory there. It's still going strong, and it was set up in a corner, and Draconis came in and sat down on the couch. And the darn thing fell right over on him, busted into a bazillion pieces. Thankfully, we had a new bulb for it, so no harm, no foul. But I keep telling him that's what contributed to his heart attack. And for those of you that don't know, Calamity Cougar, aka Draconis, the con chair of FurryCon, had a pretty severe heart attack the day after the convention ended, and had surgery and stuff. He's doing okay now. He's on the mend and all that, but we sent him our well wishes there.
Yeah. I don't want to say hope you get better, because he's pretty much already better, but it's like
stay better.
Don't eat so much shitty food, man. No, that's very callous. I don't know what to say.
It's Fennec revenge for spilling your chips.
I still can't get over that.
But no, some good stuff they had. They kind of took a cue from us in having props. They had a giant Volkswagen bus made out of a big vinyl banner, and that you could stand behind to have your picture taken, so it looked like you were in the VW bus. And they had a giant twister mat. That was really cool. They had a pretty good dance. They had this one horse DJ that was really good. Name escapes me right now. I'll find it and put it in the doobly-doo at the bottom of the podcast. And that's the correct term, the doobly-doo. At least.
If you have any pictures of the Frozen Oasis, or the party that's like a Frozen Oasis, you should put that in too, because I think people would like to see that.
Definitely. Some good ones. Happy in his Dalmatian outfit looked really good. So in the black light. So
he always looks good, especially if you're talking about the tuxedo one. That's awesome. Yeah. I like that one. If you could say one best thing for FurryCon, what would it be?
Fun and relaxed.
Okay. It's just in general? You think it was in
general? Yeah.
It was the laid backness.
Yeah, I really do. There was always something to do if you wanted to do it.
Okay.
You may not have wanted to do it, but there was always something to do, and it was fun.
Okay. All right. So things that they did that we might adopt?
They are talking about next year having a beer tasting, and I have talked to a fur at Sasuke's room party, and his name is escaping me, and he'll be mad at me. But anyway, he is a brewmaster, so he's probably going to brew us a special batch of beer for this year's convention, and we'll have a beer tasting for the upper reg levels, just like the wine tasting.
Now, will that replace the wine tasting, or
no? It'll be in addition to.
Okay, that's great, because they drink so much wine in Game of Thrones. They drink beer too, but it's like totally about the wine.
Oh, sure. The wine tasting is way too popular to get rid of.
Yeah. In fact, we had some people sneaking into it last year, which we probably need to crack down on a little bit, because there was some expensive wine.
Well, yeah, and then after all the upper echelon there have gone through, the royalty and the persons of title, why not open it up? But yeah, we need to keep it.
Yeah, there were people sneaking in before that, though. So what could FurryCon have done better? Do you have any suggestions for them? Other than don't have a heart attack the day after the con?
I really don't have an answer for that right now.
I do. I don't look anything like Gary Sinise. My my suggestion is get some glasses, please.
Okay, sounds good.
So sorry, listeners. Of course, we have put in way too much programming. There's not enough time to talk about all six conventions that, or seven conventions that Sauron individually attended. So we're going to chop it off at three, do three another time. He really wants to talk about FAU, even though Furpocalypse is next on our list. So take it away. What was the best thing about FAU?
FAU. It was Dragoneer puts on a good show down there. I think the best thing was something we're going to try to incorporate this year. I think is their pool party. They have a cookout and pool party on Saturday, and that's kind of the end of the summer or midsummer. We're the beginning of the summer, so I kind of thought it'd be kind of cool to kind of implement that as well. So it'll be hot dogs, hamburgers, that kind of thing, and then the pool deck for all reserved solely for us for several hours on Sunday of the convention. So I think that's kind of a really neat thing. And I do kind of have a funny story too from FAU. Unfortunately, there was a malfunction in the alarm systems at the hotel, and they had to evac us. But they kept telling us to move forward, move out of the hotel and move further into the parking lot. And right when everybody got to the landscaped portion, like all these fursuiters are out there, the sprinkler system comes on. And we were like, pass the soap. Somebody get the soap. It was all a plot just to wash the fursuiters. But that was my little anecdote from FAU.
It wasn't actually, was it?
No, it wasn't actually a plot, but that actually happened.
Wow.
And then the other thing was meeting Dragoneer's mother. That was really funny. Sasuke had his arm resting on Nimbus's shoulder because it was bugging him or something, and she came over and started giving Sasuke a whole load of stuff about how he didn't have to hold up his arm and all this, and I started to say it was okay, and she told me, well, you ain't got anything to say about it. And I'm snickering. I'm like, okay, whoever the heck you are. And, she was as well into the spirits as we all were at the time. And, we all kind of look at each other and just laugh it off and whatever. And about 10 minutes later, we're sitting inside now, come in to get another drink, and this same lady comes over and introduces herself, and it's Dragoneer's mom. And we sat there and we had a great talk with her. She's a great lady. Just a good fun time at FAU. Thoroughly enjoyed that convention as well.
All right, very cool. So you've mentioned one thing that we are going to adopt from them. Is there anything else that we might adopt from them that you can think of?
Not right off the top of my head. I think that was the main thing.
Okay.
At least this year.
Okay. Well, is there anything that we could adopt from them for maybe a future year?
Yeah, they had some they had rented some some interesting lighting for the stage shows. And it's some stuff that I've been talking with Kiski about. So maybe in future years we'll go for some of the more advanced lighting that they had used this year.
Okay, very cool. Very, very cool. Is there anything that you think they could have done better, and what would it be?
I always have a hard time at FAU figuring out when and where their programming is, and I don't know if it's a problem on their part or my part.
I think it's just that probably that programming, there's sort of that programming is just really difficult at cons. Like people were complaining at our con as well because we renamed the rooms and stuff like that, and they couldn't necessarily find stuff.
Right.
I think all cons to some degree suffer from that.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with that's difficult at FAU is a lot of the stuff goes on upstairs on the third floor or
Okay.
second floor, whatever it is. And that's not where the main convention is happening. So you have to
Right.
leave the people to go to a panel and then come back. So unless there's something that's going on that you really want to go see, I tend to miss things. And I like I said, I don't know whether that's my fault or a fault of the way the programming is set up. More than likely I would say it's my fault for not reading my con materials,
Right. Well, to some degree, I mean, that's sort of like our con suite. People actually have to leave the con to go to the con suite, which we are
Ah,
correcting this year.
yes. In past years, this year, no. It's going to be
Yes.
in con space. So.
Right. All right. So on a grading scale where FanCon is Soren's favorite con, so that's going to be A plus, and AC is pretty good, so we're going to put that at C. Where would you put MWFF?
I would put it a B or a B minus. Just
Okay.
it loses a little bit because of its size, but it's all in one spot. So and there's a lot of cool people there. So B minus. It's a good con. Well worth the money. Well worth the trip.
And an excellent hotel.
Yep.
All right, so FanCon, obviously, that's what we're grading our scale against. But if the best FanCon is A plus, where was this year's FanCon?
I would have to say it's at an A plus. I mean,
Okay.
it's gotten better every year. It's the size I like. I've had a lot of fun there. I've always been very welcomed there. Uh, and like I say, these are my personal gradings just based on what I like out of conventions, and
Right.
that was the place I had the most fun this year.
Right. Yeah. So just so you listeners know, Soren and I tend more to like the smaller cons because you get to spend more quality time with people as opposed to really big cons, which is probably why AC would be more of a C. Really big cons where you really only get to spend like 5 or 10 minutes with everybody, or you won't see everybody that's there. You pretty much you have to keep moving at those cons, and so you don't really get those deeper connections. Well, at smaller cons, you can spend, quality time with people and really get to know them, go out to dinner with them and stuff like that. All right. So the final one in our list for tonight would be FAU. Where would you grade that?
FAU, I would give a B, solid B.
Okay.
It's a good con. There's people from all over the Mid Atlantic there and the Northeast. It's got good restaurants. A lot of diner food. A lot of cool stories come out of there. We learned that Happy never ever drives anywhere again. Funny little story about that one. I'm sorry, you have to back up on this, but we were going out to eat at a diner after a night of consuming much consumables and having a good time. And Happy was the sober one, and he took a jug handle at about 40 miles an hour in my Jeep. I literally was hanging out the window to keep the Jeep on four wheels.
Jeez.
For those of you who don't know, a jug handle is a really sharp curve in New Jersey to make a left-hand turn. You turn right and you go around this loop, and it brings you out so you can get into the left lane of traffic. And it was really kind of scary.
Wow.
So it's a running joke now that Happy never gets to drive, and that's it's kind of fun though.
And so the final grade would be, what do you think of the Jura Superstition
Oh,
after an hour of having it?
let's see. I'm going to give this a number grade actually instead of a letter grade. I would say the Jura Superstition ranks about a 5, about an average single malt. I like it. I would call it an everyday drinker
Yep.
for myself.
Well, it's also the price too. It
Yeah,
doesn't. You don't have the price of a McKellen or a Lagavulin or something like that. Um, just out of curiosity, what would you say is the best Scotch you've ever had, independent of year? What's the best distillery?
distillery. God, that's tough. The stuff that we got for Nimbus's 21st birthday was really good, and it was. You're gonna have to help me. Is it called Ballavini? Is that pronounced right?
Yeah, Balvenie. Yeah,
Balvini.
yeah.
It was their double cask. It was a 21-year-old Scotch, but that was a really good Scotch, and I've tasted a lot of different vintages out of that distillery, and I like that one a lot.
Yeah. You really can't go wrong with a Scotch that can drink itself. I mean, it's 21 years old, man. Uh, so for me, I don't know. I would give the Origin maybe a 4.5. It's definitely not as good as the Superstition. I like it, but it's. I don't know if I like your grading scale because I mean, average I would say is like C, which is 70%, right, or 75%. I'd say it's pretty average. Not as good as Superstition. It's definitely not the best I've had, and I would say that Lagavulin is probably my favorite.
Lagavulin 16. That's what I was drinking out at MFF.
We had Lagavulin 18 at last year's Game for Conchairs.
Yes, yes, we did.
All right. So I think that is probably going to wrap this up. So I'm Ethers, your host, signing off.
And I'm Sauron, the Paw of the King. Wishing you all well till next time.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Laters.